All my years of content creation, all my years of doing book tags have led to this moment. It's fine. Bibliophiles of the internet, my name is Audrey, and today I'm here to bring you the official, original Cemetery Boys book tag as part of the Hear Our Voices book tour for Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. So a big thank you to the Hear Our Voices team for trusting me with the creation of this tag, and also to what I call the official CB Protection Squad, who reread Cemetery Boys with me and who not only helped me brainstorm for this tag, but who refined and clarified the ideas I brought to the table while also contributing some fantastic ideas themselves. And also for putting up with my insufferable, embarrassing voice messages. All the information for Hear Our Voices and the socials for the Protection Squad will be linked down below, so you should definitely check them out. I should also point out that if you want even more Cemetery Boys content, I did a reading vlog for Cemetery Boys, which I'm incredibly proud of. I reviewed Cemetery Boys twice on Goodreads, and I also did a really fun interview with Aiden Thomas, so all of that will be also linked down below if you're interested. Before we get into the tag, I did want to say that my intention was to make this a quick, easy, accessible tag to do, so whether you've read the book or not, whether you're on BookTube or some other platform, whatever your capacity is, wherever you are, you can do this tag, I promise. If all goes according to plan, I will actually have a link down below to a shareable folder where you can find Instagram story templates and question card templates so that you can bring this tag to other platforms. I will have those accessible on my socials as well, and I'm very excited to be able to offer those options. So yeah, by design, it was made to be quick and fun with what I hope are interesting questions. My video may be a little bit longer because I'm giving you the background and contextualizing the prompts, peeling back the veil, giving you behind the scenes action, but it is quick and simple, I swear. So to start off, for those of you who may not know, and if you follow my channel and still somehow don't know, I am a little bit ashamed of you, but to give you some context, Cemetery Boys is an own voices queer Latinx YA paranormal romance about YADRIEL, who is trans and who wants to prove to his traditional family that he is a brujo, but because they don't think it'll work, they won't let him do the rites of passage. So he takes it upon himself to do the ritual on his own, thinking he's going to summon the spirit of his recently murdered primo, but instead he summons the wrong spirit, Julian, the school's resident bad boy, who is determined to drag YADRIEL all the way into his unfinished business. I'm gonna leave it at that, but you know, I love this book. So the first 3 prompts are dedicated to our 3 amazing main characters, and first up is of course YADRIEL, and his prompt is to choose an underhyped book that exceeded your expectations. We chose this prompt for Yads because he's underhyped in his own mind. He cannot clearly see or understand his own power, his worth, his value, his greatness, and his instinct is to always assume that he's burdening other people or constantly making mistakes when he's not. So this prompt is a chance for you to show some love for an underhyped book, which are often the ones we should be shouting about the most. A book that doesn't get nearly as much love as it deserves is Nocturna by Maya Montaigne, which sadly gets a bad rap because people love to compare it to basic bitch white books. Yeah, I said it. This is actually a Latinx YA high fantasy story, which we don't see nearly enough of, and it's about this face-changing thief and a reckless prince and how their lives collide on their quest to obtain power and magic. I went into it with low expectations because no one was really talking about it, but it's such a compelling and beautifully imagined story that really kept me hooked the entire time, and it has 2 messy main characters, which I love to see. Don't listen to lazy reviewers. You should definitely read this book. Next up is Julian, and for Julian, you're going to choose a book that doesn't stick to one genre. This prompt was perfect for Julian because he's so energetic and hyperactive. He's constantly distracted by the nearest shiny thing, and he can be having 3 different conversations where he'll interrupt himself and then pick back up on another train of thought as if he never stopped talking about that thing in the first place. Julian's basically all over the place at any given moment in the best possible way, so this is your chance to choose your favorite multi-genre or genre-defying book. This might be a good time to point out that I could easily choose Cemetery Boys for most of these answers, but I'll be good, and I won't. Because the trilogy is fresh on my mind, I'm gonna go with The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, which is chef's kiss. It's such an ambitious, epic trilogy. On the one hand, it's historical fiction, but then it's also fantasy because there's a hidden world full of magic. It has that mythological, fairy tale-like feeling as well with some of the different creatures and species, and it also dabbles a little bit in romance. I shouldn't have to say this, but if you haven't started City of Brass, you need to get on it. And rounding out the character questions, we have arguably the most important person in the squad, MARITZA, and for MARITZA, you are to choose a book that helped you or got you through a tough time. This one's pretty self-explanatory self-explanatory because Maritza is Yad's ride or die. She is the ultimate hype man. She's always there. She's always supporting him. She always has Yad's back. She will defend him whether he's in the room with her or not, and he literally would not be on this journey without her defying their family, secretly forging a portaje, and being there with Yad's every step of the way. I knew my answer for this right away, and I've talked a little bit about it before, but that would be I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu. I read this after one of the most miserable trips of my life. I was very far away from home and from everyone important in my life, basically by myself, and I was starting to go through what would ultimately end up being a friendship breakup, which sucks. And I just have these distinct memories of sitting at a bus station for hours and hours far away from home, and the only thing I had to distract me was this book. Getting lost in this adorable, hilarious, heartfelt romance allowed me to hold myself together and do what I had to do long enough to literally get to a place where I would be safe and supported. So not only was this such a wonderful, delightful story, but I can never fully express how much I appreciate it because of that experience. Next up is QUINCES, and for this I want to hear about your favorite coming-of-age story. For anyone who doesn't know, a QUINCES is a huge symbolic ritual within many Latinx communities. They can take on many different forms, but they actually, ironically, represent a celebration of someone's transition from childhood to adulthood. So it's this moment of becoming visible, so to speak, to your community as they begin to recognize you as an adult. Gosh, I think for this I have to say pretty much anything by Julian Winters. This question makes me think about Julian because I recently interviewed him for Quarantine Pages, and we were talking about how you never truly come of age because we're constantly learning new things about ourselves and our place in the world, and I think he captures that perfectly in all of his work. All of his books sort of return to this idea of not knowing who you are and learning to be okay with not knowing, which is exactly why I'm so glad his stories exist for young folks. Next we have Dia de Muertos. Pick a backlist book you would love to bring back and hype up again. I love this prompt so much, and I can't even take credit for it. It was all DMAR. They brought the fucking heat. Again, this is self-explanatory, I think, because Dia de Muertos is the Day of the Dead, where we believe that certain rituals and offerings bring our deceased loved ones back to us or closer to us, and that our remembrance can awaken those who have passed on. So this question is in the spirit of that concept. This backlist book was written in the early 2000s, but I just read it this year, and it ruined my life, and that is The Book of Salt by Monique Trong. It's queer historical fiction, voices for the Vietnamese rep about this Vietnamese chef who's immigrated to France and is looking for work as a live-in chef when he finds himself in the household of Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas. The way Monique Trong writes should be outlawed because it is so much. She has this way of tapping into the human soul by way of seemingly innocuous details, and she finds these little moments that make you utterly believe in her characters and their choices. It's such an intricate and close story about loneliness and loss and being othered and all the things we do to survive, and it almost instantly became one of my favorite books. Then we have Pan de Muerto. Pick a story you wish you could give or offer your loved ones. So Pan de Muerto is a traditional bread, pan dulce, that is often a ceremonial offering on our loved ones' ofrendas. It can be specially decorated or specially made, but basically it's a food we believe can be enjoyed by both the living and the dead, and like I said, we offer it to those who are no longer with us. And this question came from a place of recognizing that new stories are being created and impacting us every day, and those stories that can become formative for us can be stories that other people in our lives, especially people who came before us, will never even see or know that they exist. And it also came from me wondering, what books would I give the people in my life so that they might better understand me, which I think is very much in line thematically with Cemetery Boys. This one's tough because I really want to say Cemetery Boys, but another book I would love to give my ancestors, both living and deceased, is Sorted by Jackson Bird. This is like the most logical choice because it can serve as a fantastic trans 101 for people who are just learning. It has a lot of really helpful definitions, charts, graphics, and resources for people who are completely new to the concept of being trans, but at the same time, it's not dry. It's not like a textbook. Jackson Bird is an amazing human, and his memoir is personable and full of life, and he has such a wonderful way of thoughtfully breaking down and assessing his own experiences. Sorted is amazing in ways I can't even fully express, and if you have access to it, you should definitely listen to the audiobook. The next two prompts are inspired by the magic system in Cemetery Boys, and first up is Tether. Choose a book you feel most connected to. Tethers are basically usually objects that a spirit will attach itself to because that object held great meaning for them in life. So it's an object that's very personal to them and keeps them grounded in the living world in a sense. There's a little old gardener character, for example, whose tether is a pair of shears. Julian's tether is his St. Jude pendant. Those items ground them and connect them to the Brujex community as spirits. A book I feel most connected to. I'm not gonna say it. I think I'm gonna give this one to, surprisingly, Love Me for Who I Am by Konoyama Kata. I just felt so much for the main character, Mogomo, who's non-binary and being told at every turn that they have to dress a certain way and present a certain way in order to be acceptable to people, which is so not the point. The story really addresses this idea that you have to be certain things in order to be worthy, lovable, valuable, when the truth is that you don't have to earn those things. It's also a story that really drives home the point that how you look and how you dress doesn't always have a direct correlation with how you experience gender, and I love that so much. Then of course we had to have Portaje, a book that was passed on to you. This could be a gift or even your favorite secondhand book. So portajes are like sacred objects that help Brujex channel their powers, and I wanted this prompt to be about something given to you because Brujex receive their portajes from other Brujex in the community. It's not something they really make or even find themselves. So as a brujo, Yadriel's portaje would be a dagger, but because no one would make him one, MARITZA forges one for him on her own, and I feel like there is intrinsic power in the gifting of that object. For this, I'm going to choose I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver because one of my mutuals actually reached out to me and offered me the ARC. It's just one of those cases where publishing is so wild because I, a non-binary person, could not for the life of me nail down an early copy of this extremely own voices non-binary book. So if someone had not gone out of their way to give this to me, I would not have been able to read it and review it before the release date, which again seems like a severe marketing oversight. And obviously it's a story that means a great deal to me and it validated me in ways I didn't even know I needed. So it's solely because of a kind person in this community that I was able to have that reading experience. Second to last is probably my favorite prompt. It was the first prompt I conceptualized, and thankfully the squad helped me refine it into a prompt that actually made sense, and that is wet binder, name a book you're stuck on. When I was first approached to make this tag, I was like, Yad's binder has to be in the tag. It is so emblematic and it was so iconic to me, especially as a binder wearing person. The story is not at all about Yad's binding, but you are aware of what's happening with Yad's binder at any given moment. And it is often wet, whether from rain or sweat or being fresh out the shower, which is such a great detail because for anyone who doesn't bind, things get very challenging when your binder is wet, and it will often get stuck on your skin. This is not going to come as a surprise, but a book I am forever stuck on is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which I maintain is one of the absolute best books. This book is devastatingly beautiful, and I have spoken ad nauseum about how absolutely gutting it is to see these two characters in their bright-eyed youth discovering their love and their power, only to have that completely stripped away by the end in so many ways. The way the relationship between Achilles and Patroclus evolves over time and changes according to the circumstances they find themselves in is meticulously written, and I will never, ever get over Madeline Miller's prose. It's enough to make you never want to write again because the best has already been done, so why try? I could write entire dissertations about how thoroughly Madeline Miller has wrecked my life because of The Song of Achilles, but I'm just gonna say that Cemetery Boys does at times exude some pretty choice Song of Achilles energy, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. And finally, it would be a crime not to include PURRCASO, Yadriel's cat. So for PURRCASO, I want you to choose a soft book you really love. This one definitely explains itself. PURRCASO is a cat and she's really sweet and loving and soft. For this, I have to go with Caroline's Heart by S.A. Chance. This has big Howl's Moving Castle energy because it's about this witch and her magical workshop that transports her places so she can help those who are sick and disabled, and this quiet cowboy who just wants to help her and cook for her and give her time to relax. So rarely do we get to see these quiet, sweet stories about two trans characters just loving each other and wanting to take care of each other, so this will always be one of my favorite books for letting us have that. So those are all the questions or prompts for the Cemetery Boys book tag, and not gonna lie, I'm feeling pretty good about what I've created here with my friends. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to the squad for helping me out. When the Hear Our Voices team offered me the book tag, which I wasn't even planning on, I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be easy. No one knows this book better than me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that no one does anything alone in Cemetery Boys, and they're stronger because of it. So if I was going to create something that truly honors this story that has done so much for me, it should be, no pun intended, in the spirit of the book. So I'm going to tag a bunch of people who I know have read Cemetery Boys, people from the Latinx squad, people from the CB Street team, anyone I can think of. And if you decide to do this tag yourself, definitely at me, because I would love to see your answers and share your take on this tag. So you know where to find me on the internet. But that's everything I had for this original book tag today. Until next time, educate yourself, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.